crunch of the idea is that there are two sorts of multis. One is that multimodal, and the other multi is there's more than one literacy.
What we want to do is expand the repertoire, right? So how do you expand the repertoire of the teacher in teaching literacy in this multiple ways with rigour?
The fox is going to stand on the rake, and the rake might, and it's going to go up, and he's not going to get that chicken, he's going to say boing! I like the animation. It's where the pictures move.
Communication is changing. Language is changing. Technology offers us ever-changing ways of creating and sharing meaning. How can educators prepare young children to be active and critical users and makers of meaning in their 21st century world? Bill Cope and Mary Kalantzis, along with an international group of educators concerned with changes in our communications environment, met to consider the future of literacy teaching. What needs to be taught and how in our rapidly changing world?
What we want to do is expand the repertoire. All countries and educators were struggling with how to prepare young people for a world that was complex in the way in which literacy was made, and it wasn't just alphabetical literacy anymore. That was the first thing. And the second thing, in almost every country in the world was cultural and linguistic diversity. And that diversity was in the classroom.
The people in this grade have had their parents, or even they've come from another country to come and live in Australia.
All of us who came together at that moment came from countries that were English speaking, but had extraordinary linguistic and cultural diversity within them, as well as the changes that the new technologies had brought. So, and the new technologies are impacting on English too, because although we think that the new technologies are going to make English the lingua franca of the world, that in fact that is not the case. I mean, you're having many more languages that the new technology is enabling, including a new language called Netlish, which is a variation of English that people use for emails. So it's not just that anything goes and that you don't need standard English or the standard language that a group is operating in, but what we want to do is expand the repertoire. Right? So how do you expand the repertoire of the teacher in teaching literacy in this multiple ways with rigour, right? And how do you allow for the child's repertoire to be recognised, harnessed and taught about?
The New London Group, as they became known, coined a new term, multiliteracies.
The crunch of the idea is that there are two sorts of multis. One is that multimodal, which is words never exist by themselves, or rarely these days exist by themselves. They're usually on, visually designed pages or screens or the like. And the other multi is there's more than one literacy. In different contexts. I mean, doctors speak and write in a different way to plumbers do. We live in a world where people speak in very different ways for very, very different purposes. The old world of the printing press separated writing and image. So, if you remember old-fashioned books, the pictures were always a separate section. And the reason why it was actually very hard to put image and text on the same plate, it was actually just hard from a manufacturing point of view. In fact, with desktop publishing, it's just so, and word processing, it's so easy to put an image on the same page as a piece of writing. Audio is also, created digitally. So to create a multimedia text where there is audio and visual and textual all on the same space, you do it in the same platform, you do it on the same page.
So how do you address literacy given that level of multiplicity, both in the mode in which literacy is communicated and meaning made, and the complex linguistic backgrounds from which our children come, not only in terms of other languages, but varieties of English and varieties of their own language?